Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel. We're doing a Saturday craft day with Kraftgali, and we're doing something a little bit different today. So we'll get into the color and chat in just a minute. I wanted to show you what I'm going to be using for my project today. This is a Hero Arts background stamp. Beautiful winter scene, and I've stamped this out on some 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm using alcohol markers, so any alcohol markers you have would work well. I'm choosing today to use my Ohuhu markers, which are the 120 set that I have, lots and lots of colors, and I really just wanted to take my time and have some fun coloring. But with that, if I'm going to put that in a video, it's pretty lengthy. So it took me a couple hours to color this up in full. Even with my strategic way of laying out how I did this, I still think in total, maybe it wasn't a couple hours, maybe it was definitely over an hour. But what I did was I pulled out some color families. I decided how I wanted this color theme to go before I started coloring, because if not, I'm going back and forth quite a bit with my markers. So I chose out different color families. I chose the palette, as you see from the pictures, very pastel and light colors. So purples, pinks, teal, light green, gray, a lot of gray, and blue gray. And I thought that was just going to be a lot of fun. Plus, it would go a little bit faster if I decided if that was the whole color theme, then I could pick up my pink and I could color different parts of my cardstock or my panel pink and kind of jump around with it instead of doing the whole house and then another whole house and then so on and so forth. So it did make it go by a lot faster doing it this way for me. So I'm going to leave the coloring on, and I have the caps on the screen if you have any question of which colors I'm using. But I am going to do a color and chat today. So it's been a very long time since I've done a color and chat. I've gotten, some people like them, some people don't like to hear me blabber on for the remainder of the card. So if it's not your thing, feel free to mute me and put on some of your favorite rock and roll and enjoy the card anyway. So for today's color and chat topic, we're going to talk about copying and sharing projects, particularly in this regard, card projects. And this topic came about as something I've wanted to talk about this for a while. I feel like people have shared their perspectives. I just never really shared mine. But I was talking to a crafty friend of mine recently, Lila Taylor Miller. And she runs and owns the Facebook page Stamping Life, which, side note, I have to tell you, is probably one of the most positive atmospheres on social media. So if you're not following Stamping Life, go over there, check it out. Very, very encouraging atmosphere for card makers, for crafters. So she's just wonderful. And so we were chatting about it, and one of the topics came up on the Facebook page about how some people feel hesitant to share their projects because they feel like their projects might be too similar to, let's say, more popular or more well-known crafters out there, and they don't want it to make it seem like they're copying their projects. And there was some hesitation surrounding that, and also just copying projects in general, I guess, just kind of not feeling confident in putting their stuff out. Well, there's kind of two parts to that, in my opinion. So there's you legit had your own ideas with this product that you have, this stamp set or what have you, and then you are like, wait, someone's idea came out from a design team and it looks just like what I just made. I can't share this now because of X, Y, and Z. It looks too much like that person's. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is it appropriate to copy people's work? And if sharing it, how should you go about doing that? So starting with the first aspect of it, which is, you feel like your project is too similar to someone else's. Here's what I would say about that. Quite honestly, some products that come out, you can only do so much with that product. I think you know what I'm talking about. There's certain background stamps or certain dies that there's really a limited amount of options that you can do with that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know that I've been on design teams where a couple of us have gotten the same product, and our projects came out fairly similar. Of course, there's always a tweak here or there, and it's not absolutely identical. But maybe we use the same technique with the product, or maybe we just use the same coloring medium or something like that. And there's really nothing that you can do to avoid that. That should not be a factor to make you hesitant in not sharing your products or your projects. I feel like that's an important thing to do, and we shouldn't worry about things like that. I think if your project does look similar to someone else's, and people in the community are offended by that, I think that all that takes is a conversation. Maybe ask the question privately, like, hey, did you know that this looks exactly like so-and-so's? Or maybe we just don't care at all, because that's going to lead me into my second part. So the second part of this copying conversation is it appropriate to copy people's work? So I'm going to take you back to circa 2007 when I started card making. And I went to my first party and I was like, oh, I'm hooked. Okay, so I didn't know where to start. I knew I wanted to be it wasn't a craft room. It wasn't a craft space. It was a table in my dining room. That was my area. I knew I wanted to be at my table and make something, but I had no idea how to even go about doing that. And so what I would do is I had a couple stamp sets, and I would go online and I would search that stamp set, and I would look at cards that were made with it. And I would copy it from start to finish. I would copy that card and I would recreate that card. And the whole process of me doing that was super fun. And I realized, as I've taken my journey of card making into the direction that I did, that I couldn't have gotten to where I am if I hadn't copied those projects. I learned how inks went together, the colors that matched, what cardstock to use, how to cut cardstock, like all those fundamental things for card making, I was able to do by copying other people's work. So that work inspired me, and it gave me the confidence to move forward. Now, I set a personal goal of eventually adding my own touches to the cards. So I would start off with different embellishments, maybe different color inks or what have you. But that was a personal goal for mine. The process of sitting down, making time for myself, and doing this was the greatest part of that process. And I feel like that should be the focus of what you're doing. If you are stopping the world around you and taking time to be creative every day, in my opinion, it does not matter what you're creating. If you are copying someone's, because there's some people who continue, that's all they do is copy other people's work. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's how you are giving back time to yourself, do it. That's fine. I'm going to use an analogy here, and why I feel this is so important for us to encourage is because I'm not a chef. I cannot cook. None of that. But if I have a recipe in front of me, I can most likely follow that recipe, and at the end of it, hopefully have an edible meal for my family. That's the hope, right? Is that they could sit down and eat what I just made. And I did not come up with any of those ingredients by myself. I don't know what works together. I'm not interested in learning how to do that. Quite frankly, I don't enjoy cooking. But I can do that, right? So it's kind of the same thing, is I will never be the one to experiment in my kitchen. But I do enjoy, maybe I don't enjoy the process of figuring out how to cook, but I do enjoy cooking for my family. Like, that part of it is enjoyable to me. So you're a card maker, maybe you don't want to figure out how to come up with ideas on your own. Maybe that part stresses you out. And so you just want the process of using the products you have and sitting down and putting together a card that you think is beautiful, that someone else made. Continue to do that. Like, do you. You have to do what's comfortable for you. I think that that's fine. I also think that's fine to make that card and give it away to somebody because your hands created it. Just like that food, at the end of the day, if that food upstairs is awful, they're not looking at me saying, well, I guess Betty Crocker is awful. No, they're looking at me saying, this food is terrible, Mom. Can we please have takeout? Right? But my point to that is, when you're giving away a card, you put that card together yourself, so you should be proud of that. So when we're talking about like how to share on social media and things like that. I think the consensus, generally speaking, is you should give credit where you were inspired. And I'm going to tell you my own personal opinion on that if someone recreates my card and doesn't give me credit for it, whether it's because they forgot or they don't like me or whatever the case is, if they just don't give me credit for that card, I personally don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. That's just my own personal thing. But a lot of people are bothered by that, and I respect that equally. And I feel like to cover the basis, I think, first of all, if you intentionally withhold, giving someone credit for inspiring you, I'm curious about your intentions. Like, why would you do that? You re-inspire the creator, in my opinion, if you tell them, I saw what you did and I loved it so much that I wanted to do it myself. And I think that reinvigorates that creator to be like, oh, like what I'm doing matters and people are inspired and it makes them feel good. So you shouldn't withhold an opportunity to make someone feel nice. So that's what I would say, is share it because it's a nice thing to do, that you were inspired by them. But I also feel like it kind of helps differentiate between who's part of the community and who are the people out there trying to steal ideas and designs and use them for their own benefit and own profit. So consider that as well. So if you also consider, whether or not you want to give people credit, also know that it's hard for creators and company owners who have design team members to decipher between the people who are trying to do this maliciously. And there are people out there who are stealing card designs and actual photos of people's cards and putting them and creating Instagram accounts and things like that. I don't have any, data points of who to look out for at this point, but I will tell you that I've heard it happening. And so you just want to make sure that you're not being lumped into that arena. But I have had a couple people, like, I would love for you to share and tag me that you recreated a card of mine. If that's what you do and that's what makes you happy, I'd love to see that, so consider me, one of the people that is super interested in that. So I'll come back to that in a second, but I just wanted to mention on this card right here, I'm changing my outline stamped image, because you're probably wondering why I was covering over that, into a silhouette. So it's still pretty hard to see when the card is finished, but it's like a subtlety of the sky, of Santa and the reindeer. And I really, really liked that, because in the night sky, it's going to be hard to see something that's, bright and colored and all that. So that's why I chose to do the night sky the way that I did. Okay. So anyway, hopefully that I was able to kind of share my perspective. I'm always interested in hearing your perspectives. That's why we have a comment section. So please chime in and let me know if, you concur with what I'm saying or if I'm way off the mark. I'm definitely all ears. I love to hear that, especially color and chats. Color and chats are never really an easy thing to do because there is a sense of vulnerability. You're putting yourself out there to share your opinions and perspectives for other people to hear. And not everybody is going to agree with everything you're saying. And that's okay. I think that we need to stop shying away from sharing our thoughts, because if I didn't share with you and you share back with me, then I wouldn't have the ability to kind of open up my worldview and my mind to, change my perspectives when needed. So I would encourage us to do that a little bit more often and share. And I'm happy to hear what you all have to say and what you think about this. So I am going to zip it on that and turn it back over to a little bit of instruction or talking about the card a little bit more as we round out the rest of this video. So you saw me coloring it. I'm now going in and putting some shading on the snow. I had such a blast coloring this up. I don't ever take this much time to color anything, and I felt so good about it. Like at the end of the project, I was like, yeah, I just feel good about this. It was just fun, and I love the colors. I actually made the Santa and the reindeer a silhouette, as you saw, instead of coloring them in. So, because I wanted my focus to be on the sky, and I wanted to use some alcohol markers to get that blend on the sky, which when I started doing it, truth be told, I was like, there's no way this is going to work out. I'm not going to be able to do this blend business. But it did because I kept working at it. So with alcohol markers, you just keep going and give it a shot and see if you can kind of make that work. The more layers you put down, probably the more you're going to get to have it move because of the saturation. So that definitely, super happy I stayed with it. I did like the black, well, when you stamp it out, there's spots in the sky and little stars. And if you stamp it out in black ink, they're all going to be black. So I wanted to go back in and use my white gel pen. And I covered all those little stars and the little dots for the snow or stars in the white gel pen. And this kind of brought that sky to life. So yeah, really, really excited about how this card turned out. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add some stickles because I feel like that's going to add that just the final oomph to this card to give it some dimension. Not so much dimension, that's not the right word. To give it texture. To give it some texture and something that would make it unique to a card that you can buy in the store. Because that is one thing I like to do with my handmade cards, is to add something else to it that you would not be able to get if you were to pick up a handmade card. But I have seen lately some handmade cards that or not handmade, store-bought cards. They're trying to pick up their game a little bit. I think someone sent me or gave me a card that was a shaker card of some sort. I was like, wonder where you got that idea, Hallmark. They've been checking out YouTube. That's where. So anyway, that's the last thing I'm going to do for this card. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. If you stayed till the end, God bless you. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the card, or if you have any questions or the topic that we discussed today. I will put everything that I used in this card down below, and let me know again if you have any questions. You can head over to Kraftgali and pick up this background stamp if you're interested in it. Absolutely love it. It's a lot of fun. I see a lot of different things I can do with this one. So that's it. Thanks so much, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.